Good morning. My name is Richard Wilson, and I will be the Master of Ceremony today. We'll start off the procedure with Gerald Faulkner, Chaplain of our Marine Corps League, with a prayer. Gerald?
Uncover. Father, we thank you so much for the freedom that we have in this great nation. We today are honoring the men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can exercise our freedom. We pray that we could honor their memory, that we could honor and hold up their families and loved ones, and that we would never forget the high price that we paid. We thank you, God, and we pray that you would bless this morning. Amen.
Amen. Marine Corps League, would you present the colors, please? Order, arms. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ms. Becky Denney, Eastern Commissioner, Pickens County Commission. Ms. Denney?
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. On behalf of the Pickens County Board of Commissioners, I would like to welcome everyone and say thank you for being here today. I am deeply honored to stand with you commemorating the sacrifices of those military men and women who have laid down their lives in service to this nation. These men and women are indisputably heroes. When their country called, they answered. Each took it upon him or herself to serve faithfully and to their fullest. Let's all remember, it is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the veteran, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. I would ask each of you, as you leave here today and go about the rest of your day, to keep the fallen on your mind and keep their families in your hearts, for it is their immense sacrifices that have helped keep our country safe and free. May God bless Pickens County, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. America the Beautiful, have we got that keyed up? You can all join in singing America the Beautiful. The words are in the back of the inside of the program. Thank you. All right, at this time, I would like to introduce our speaker, Colonel Mitchell Swan, United States Marine Corps. Colonel Swan grew up near Boston, went to Marquette University in Milwaukee. He served in the Marine Corps for the past 30 years and will officially retire 1 June of this year, just around the corner. Colonel Swan, has performed numerous duties in his career. Please take time to read his bio in the back of the program. Thank you, tough work. Colonel, the podium is yours.
Good morning. Thank you all very sincerely for having me out here this morning. You know, before I begin, I'd like to remind everyone across this country, East Coast to West Coast, North to South, groups of Americans are coming together as we are here in Jasper to pay honor to those servicemen who have fallen in combat for our freedoms. And that to me is very important, and I am again honored to be here. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Wayne Poore, Stuart Smith, and the Jasper Marine Corps League Detachment for having me out today. Before I begin, and understand I'm going to go between my notes and talking with you because I've had a 2-hour drive and I didn't get as much time on this.
Just wing it.
I'd like to share a true story, though, to kind of set the tone of what this day is all about, at least where I would like to go in that direction as we discuss this. The true story is about the words of a young soldier who wrote in his diary prior to his death in combat. That is what I want to share with you. Toward the end of his inaugural address in 1981, President Reagan spoke of the monuments to heroism, and with a struggle to control his voice, drew attention to the sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery with its row upon row of simple white markers. Referring to those markers, he said, "Under such a marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barbershop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division." The Rainbow Division was out of New York, and a young officer had just taken charge of that. You may have heard of him, Douglas MacArthur. While in France, we lost this young private. And after he was killed, a diary was found in which he had inscribed the following pledge: "America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost, as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." I can understand why Ronald Reagan stumbled with those words. Those are powerful. I will refer to that. I look at these words and I looked up the images of that diary. They're all true. It's not a fictitious story. It's so powerful. That individual commitment, that honor, that willingness to sacrifice is what we gather to remember today. While Private Treptow wrote those words for himself, they express the feelings and commitment of millions of Americans who have served and sacrificed in uniform. Again, America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure, I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost, as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. What a contrast that is to some in our nation now. Not saving, not working, protesting for free stuff. It's their right. Give it to me. Where have we lost that spirit of that young private? I share his words, and I repeated them twice, because we often look for inspiration in times of war, and we remain in war. They alluded that I've been in the Marine Corps for 30 years. Half of my career has been with this struggle. Examples that we look at are Bunker Hill, the Alamo, Pearl Harbor, and certainly the losses of 9/11 to inspire us. Over the past 2 centuries, men and women have laid down their lives in battle fighting for our nation, fighting for ideals and values, for individual liberty, individual freedom, the individual self-determination to become that which we want to become, and not made to be something that we don't intend to become. That is what we celebrate. Those men and women have not died for selfish personal objectives. No one died on the battlefield for individual power, for personal money, or for social gain. Since our earliest struggles to form our nation, Americans have answered the call to fight for these ideals. And I will point out too, in our history, from our very earliest wars to Vietnam to our current struggles, it is the American citizen soldier that has answered the call. 1/3 of our fighting force are the reserves and National Guardsmen today. Before that, we had the draft. After 9/11, our recruiting offices were flooded with young men and women who wanted to pitch in and do something. As citizens, we must carry on that tradition today, even when we are out of uniform. When we talk about the sacrifice and dying for ideals, we are reminded that one did die for our spiritual character. We celebrated his sacrifice last month when Christ died on the cross. He did that for our preservation of our spiritual character. Today we gather because those traits built this nation to remember those servicemen that died for our national character. And we owe it to them to remember what that is and hold true to the course. I've mentioned the best way to honor the sacrifices of those who died for our nation is to continue to fight for what they provided. Dedicate ourselves to preserving these ideals to following generations. While many Americans thank servicemen for what they do and for their service, when asked what that means, they'll say, well, you defend our freedoms, our way of life. You defend the Constitution. I would like to remind this small group here and the Boy Scouts over there, our Constitution and freedoms are not being threatened by our adversaries overseas. I promise you, I wrote U.S. Policy for General Mattis. This is not a fight that we will not win. The erosion of our Constitution is happening here within our borders. A lot of us would like to step off planes after long deployments and say to the American citizen, thank you for safeguarding the Constitution in my absence. Why am I intruding on your personal, private emails, your phone calls? Is that what this nation is about? What happened to the nation when you could say anything you wished? And that's what we fought for. Not just so that I could say what I want, but that others could. And now I live in a world of trigger words and safe spaces and hurt feelings. Oh yeah, I'm going there this morning. So how do we deal with that? How do we stay true to ourselves as a nation? Let me share some wisdom from the gentleman I just alluded to. He's referred to in Matthew 5:13, where Christ told us, you are to be the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Now that's a wonderful lesson. It's been interpreted many different ways. Some will say be like salt of the earth because salt, it adds spice to life. Others say it should be humility. Do you know there's over 14,000 proven applications for salt? There's two I'd like to focus on, but specifically for Americans. And you don't have to believe in the divinity of Christ to observe this. Two of the earliest uses of salt for our nation were done by our frontiersmen. It is a preservative and a disinfectant. You can preserve meat for it for a long time, and you can disinfect wounds and kill bacteria without harming the healthy flesh. Americans should be like salt. We need to preserve the ideals that our soldiers fought and died for, absolutely. And we must also serve as that social disinfectant against those influences which attempt to alter our Constitution and the framework that built this country. The human heroic efforts fought by our fallen service members to maintain this country must always, always endure. This is a never-ending struggle. Regardless of the battles that are silent now, regardless of the wars that are over, the struggle for this nation endures. This is why. There are 7 billion people on the earth right now. There are 320 million Americans. The majority of this planet do not share our ideals. Put this bluntly, we are the last nation of consequence in Western civilization, and by that I mean the free world. If America buckles, the free world as we know it is over, and there are 2 powerful strategic forces on the outside willing to fill that void. The first one is communism, whether you look at the flavor of China or Russia, and the only other power out there is Islam. It is upon us, those 320 million, to stay resolved in our struggle to preserve individual freedom. Let me share with you something so powerful. It's a quote from Napoleon. He was stuck in the island of St. Helena in 1812. We had just apprehended him and put him back on the island for a second time and said, "You are no longer emperor. If you leave this island, next time you'll be killed." So he stayed. And he was talking to his dear friend Montague, who had been a lifelong friend. And this is what Napoleon said. He said, "I know men, and Jesus Christ is no mere man. Among him and every other there is no possible comparison. Charlemagne, Alexander, Caesar, and I built empires. But upon what did we rest our genius? Upon force. Jesus Christ built an empire based on love. And at this hour, millions stand ready to die for him." Now, Napoleon is not believed to have been a Christian. He certainly didn't act like one. He was the dictator that said, "Rule with an iron fist inside of a velvet glove." But those words are so true because what confounded Napoleon is no matter how brutal you are, whether you're a dictator, a current day warlord, a tyrant, a king, a free people who serve a higher purpose and higher ideals than of mankind cannot be put under control. Are those millions still here today? An army based on love. That's what Napoleon was talking about. And that's what each of us should do once the battle is fought and the fighting comes to an end. It is not our military power that makes our nation great, but rather its compassion. We are the only nation on earth with a standing force that will go anywhere that there is human suffering. We're the first at a volcano, the first at an earthquake, the first at a flood, and the list goes on. It was once said, reinforcing that point by an English author, "The soldier does not fight because he hates the enemy that's in front of him, but because he loves the country that's behind him." And I think all of us can agree with that, and certainly those that have served overseas in uniform. One of my friends shared an email with me recently displaying, and maybe you've all seen this, it goes around this time of year, but it displayed all the historic American cemeteries over in the countryside of France. And he marveled at all the Americans that had died in that conflict. And the pictures are impressive, but I asked him to look at those cemeteries closer, at the crosses, and ponder the Christians that had died. They were salt. They had gone forward to preserve freedom and liberty at any cost, disinfecting the world of hate and tyranny. If those fallen soldiers of the past that we honor today were here with us now, what would they say of what we've become? Have we been honoring them in our daily lives and safeguarding this nation? We have $20 million of public debt. We are 25th in the world for education. In that, we are 28th in the world for math and science. The nation that once put men on the moon on a regular basis. Did you know that we are ranked 12th in the world now for individual freedom? We have $25 trillion of private debt. That exceeds our public debt. Private debt's the debt that we owe on our cars, our mortgages, to each other. We owe more money to each other than the government owns. We have a heroin epidemic across the nation. 22 vets killing themselves per day. Are we preserving the values that so many generations died for? I think that we can do better. Here's the good news then. How do we act? What do we do? I'm going to go old school now. I'm going to talk about Heraclitus. Heraclitus was a Greek philosopher that lived 500 years before Christ. What he said, these following words, are about soldiers going into battle, but they apply to anybody in our daily lives. But Heraclitus said of soldiers going into battle, he said, for every 100, 10 shouldn't even be there. 80 are just targets. 9 are fighters, and we're thankful for them, for they make the battle. And one is a warrior, and he brings the others home. How many times do we look at the congressmen of this nation and say, wow, 10 of them don't even belong up there, they have no clue. They think Guam will capsize. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. 80 just go about the work with the title. They're not making any meaningful impact, but they're just there to be seen. And 9 are committed. Think of our clergy. Think of the people in your church. 9 are committed to that mission. And then 1 is looking over everyone, trying to bring them along. To my young Boy Scouts out there, know that this world is filled with people that do not want to lead. Most want to happily go about content being the 10 or the 80, making no impact. We are direly in need of good leadership, and everyone here can do that. I would ask that all of you be the 9 and 1 in your schools, in your businesses, in our churches, and certainly even in our veterans groups like the Marine Corps League, the VFW, AMVETS, and so many others. Our nation needs to come. Our nation needs us to continue the noble battle that the men and women we honor today fought and died for. So as we depart, let us all remember the words, once again, of Private Treptow. May we all do our utmost, as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on us alone. God bless. I ask all of you to keep a Christian heart, a warrior spirit, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, Colonel. At this time, we'd like to present the wreaths. We'll start off with the Marine Corps League. American Legion, please present your wreath. Daughters of the American Revolution, please present your wreath. Please present the wreath for the MIA POWs. Now be a 21 gun salute put on by the disabled American veterans. Gentlemen.
Good. Lord, mark. Back, right. Fire car. Ready. Ready. Fire. Fire car. Ready. Fire. Fire car. Ready. Fire. Go. Left. Face. Left. Fire.
That concludes our program. But ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, you're all here because we've lost too many warriors. So sometime today, you know, it isn't over right now because you go home. Sometime today, stop 15, 20 seconds and give a little prayer for them and their families. And just think about it. I appreciate you being here. Have a good day.